When I was in the 7th grade, I experienced some trauma that would last with me all of my life. The courts had recently handed down a decision for busing kids from other places and segregation in my neighborhood. And in my neighborhood, which looked like people like me, overnight, every one of my friends put their houses up and sold their houses and moved away, except for my dad. And that's where my story starts. So I am a commercial real estate developer, and I started out as a commercial real estate agent. And I thought by being an agent, I could bring people to town that would build good stuff in our town. And that didn't happen. So out of desperation, pure desperation, I became a real estate developer. I've served on the city council, also started the North Texas chapter of the Congress for the New Urbanism, and been involved in my community in many different ways. In addition to being a real estate developer, I'm with Neighborhood Evolution, and we're an organization that helps cities and small developers create ecosystems for their communities so they can do it themselves instead of having someone from the outside come and do it to you. So the solution by our organization is that we are doers who teach and coach. And the one common denominator that we have is that we really do love our communities. So our pillars to town making, as we call it, are farming. And farming is where you commit yourself to your neighborhood or to your community for life. It's not something you do that's convenient today or while I'm making money. It's something you commit to for your life. And that's where my trauma was turned into something positive. Because what I figured out is that the reason that people left my neighborhood like they did was because they didn't love their neighborhood. So I committed my life 35 years ago to making my neighborhoods lovable. In addition, finance. So we say at Neighborhood Evolution, the most important thing is making money, okay? But doing good is equal. Now, I didn't say doing good was the most important thing first, but making money is the most important thing, because if you don't, you can't do it again. And then form, good form. You know, the building's built up against the road properly, good architecture, good scale, good human walkable places. So, and we call the ecosystem is everything that happens around you. And in the ecosystem, you have the private sector, you have the public sector, you have the non-for-profit, and the finance sector. And that's everything around you. And that's what you need to do this work. We wrote a workbook. This is my partner, Bernice Radel from Buffalo, New York. And on how locals, some of y'all know Bernice, how locals can build vibrant communities. Oops. And we partnered with Strong Towns and to create a program that you can go. It's a step-by-step course on aspiring small developers if you want to get into this business. The secret to a great city, town, or neighborhood is it's shaped by many hands. And that's where we start the 12 steps of town making. Step number 1 is the most important step. And I tell you, the guys miss this more than the girls do. And that's why most of the small developers that I know of that are really good are women. And because they'll follow instructions. Our guys won't. So they just want to go to the end. So you want to find your place, find your farm, and you want to work it the rest of your life. Now, this is my farm in southern Dallas County. And as you can see, I'm from Dallas, Texas. So you can see that this is a big area. But I started off as an industrial and a trucking type broker. And so I had this big area. Now, Mike Keene, one of my partners in South Bend, Indiana, his farm is little. It's tiny. It's just a few blocks around his house. So your farm can be somewhere in between these two. It has to be personal to you. And the only thing that you have to do in the beginning is take a map and draw a circle around your area and start working that area. That's the only thing you have to do in the first step. Step number 2 is you got to get to know your neighbors. You got to meet people. You can meet them at Boy Scouts, at ribbon cuttings, street markets, PTAs, wherever you can go, City Hall. You just want to be everywhere all the time because this is the people you're going to use in your ecosystem. These are your plumbers, your tenants, your future buyers. These are the people that are going to activate your spaces in the future. And one of the easiest things you can do is have a street market. Who doesn't like a street market? And what is a street market like? This is real estate development. I got to get the land. I got to set up the tents. I got to collect rent from people paying. I got to clean up. I got to have toilets, all of those things. It's a beginning of development. Step number 3 is following the money. You got to make yourself attractive to the money. I got tired early on of begging for money, and so I turned it around. I started interviewing people with money. And when I interviewed somebody with money or an investor, they said, this guy's different. What's he doing interviewing us? We're used to people begging for money. So, and what you can do to start off, if you have nothing, people ask me this all the time, what you can do to just start is you can buy a modest home with an FHA loan and live in it and rent out a room or two. And that's a really good way to start because you can start with that for literally nothing these days. Now, if you get a little bit more aggressive over time, you can also do things like this. This is a strip shopping center in DeSoto, Texas. And as you can see, it's surrounded by really bad urbanism or bad suburban sprawl. But it's ugly, and it's really where I get most of my deals. It's where I get my opportunities in ugly places. And the only thing, it was an empty shopping center. The grocery store was gone. And the only thing I could get in there was a 99-cent store. But the mayor of the city asked me, please don't do that. I said, well, what do you want me to do? She goes, anything you want but a 99-cent store. So I said, okay. Will you let me cut up the parking lot and put trailers in it? Will you let me sell alcohol? Will you let me do tattoos? Will you do away with my parking requirements? And they said, yes, yes, yes. I said, will you partner with me? Will you come in and partner? And they said, yes. And so we created out of the box, this is a 26,000 square foot box, we created 50 spaces for small entrepreneurs. The ones across the top are restaurants. They're 400 square foot restaurants. And today, this is on the front of the CNU website. You'll see this, this project. And then we started leasing these spaces to food and makers and roofers and hairstylists and all different kinds of people. And then we cut holes in the front of the building because it was just a blank wall. And we created food takeout stations. And little did we know before COVID how this was going to save us. None of our 7 little restaurants went under during COVID. And they all paid their rent because they just turned around and started serving out the front window. It's pretty amazing. So step number 4, you got to learn to hire the pros, okay? This is a legal business. It's an accounting business. You can't, I don't care how small it is, you got to have an attorney. So that's, and you got to have a bookkeeper. And today you even got to have insurance because insurance has gotten so crazy these days. You need a really good insurance agent. So this is a little property on Main Street, similar to this one here, that I took on a few years ago. And what we did was we cut it up into 2 900 square foot spaces, retail. And then in the back, you know how these spaces are really deep and there's nothing to do in the back? We cut it off in the back and converted it to 2 residential units, so on one store. And you can see how simple it is inside. But notice how simple the scale is. So the scale needs to match the size of the unit. And then we were able to get high enough rents to make this thing work without really any subsidies. And then we turned around and sold it to a local barber. So we have an entrepreneur, owner, occupant, wealth builder. He's 30-something years old. These are all people he's influenced in turning them into entrepreneurs. One thing I like to do is help other people own properties, not just lease from me. So step number 5 is finding your first project. So many of us start with something really small, and I didn't do these steps in order because I'm a man. I did it, backwards, but I'm telling you the right way to do it in order. But this was a very simple, and this was a fire station in an area that nobody wanted. It was like $200,000 to purchase it. And at the time, we didn't know what we were going to put in there. So we just cleaned it up, opened the floors, and put tape down on the floor and rented it to different people. Graphic designers, artists, architects, even a real estate developer leased from us. We let it mature for a couple of years and then sold it to a really popular restaurant for a huge amount of money. And they became an owner-occupant. So now, if you want to get a little more cocky or crazy, as a real estate developer, you'll buy a hotel and try to do a boutique hotel. Okay, which this is a roadside hotel going from Dallas to Fort Worth. We purchased in 2003, and it nearly broke me. It nearly crushed me over the 12 years that I operated it. But in the end, because I farmed in my community, and I knew it so well, and I didn't give up, and I moved into it when I had to, we finally sold it one day and made a whole bunch of money and got all our money back. But only because we stuck with it. Most people wouldn't have. Now, these are the deal killers in starting your first project, and these are very important. So when you're starting your first project, you don't want to color up a bunch of drawings and spend a bunch of money with architects and engineers. What you want to do is find out if the title's good. I can't tell you how many times people have done so much in drawings and they go to closing, they can't close because there's somebody in jail that owns a piece of this in South Texas or somewhere, and they won't sign anything. So they can't transfer title. So you need survey, utilities, zoning, ADA, Americans with Disability Act, environmental, a building code, insurance, financing, and the toughest one is the fire code. Always the fire marshal, they're their own entity. You want to take care of these first, surely before you fall in love with the project, before you start creating really pretty drawings. Now, step number 6, we call this a clean step, clean, clean, clean. So you want to take a project, and this is me working out my frustration and my stress in this business, and nobody was going to do it right, okay? So I was going to show them how to do it. Now, I did this one day, and I couldn't walk for 2 days after I got through. So I gave a new appreciation for my demo guys. But anyway, this is a project called Tyler Station, and this is getting a CNU Merit Award, a Charter Award this year. And as you see, this is an industrial zone property in the middle of a neighborhood. And it was an old wax paper manufacturing plant. And then over the years, it would be owned by a real local family, and then it got owned by a big corporation. Then they started polluting the air and the ground and the water. And so when it went up for sale, nobody wanted it because it had contaminated dirt. And everybody wanted to tear it down and build apartments, but the neighborhood wasn't going to have that. And so I found out that if I didn't tear it down, I could leave the dirty dirt there instead of hauling it off to another state, like normally happens, and that I could do something different with it. And so here it is. It's longer than a football field, but you see at the top, what's right next to it is a light rail station with no parking lot. So I got my own private light rail system in Dallas, Texas. And this is what it looked like, and then what it looked like as we evolved it, and we cleaned it, and we removed the smokestack equipment off the roof, and we called it Manufacturing Meet Collaboration. See all those little blocks up there? They represent 70 different businesses in this location. And here's the interesting thing about it. We call this an entrepreneurial and workforce development without an executive director and without an on-site property manager. So the way we built it, it automatically creates this environment where people are developing people. And I don't have to have a maker space where I'm supplying table saws and things like that. Somebody else does that, and then they teach. There's a lot of teaching that goes on here. So it's very expensive. This is an area that didn't get high rents. So we used cattle panels. See, open ceilings, and these are cattle panels that you get at the farm store, and that's how we divided the spaces off. And we got, at first we thought we were going to get all like manufacturers, woodworkers, metal workers, and things like that. And very quickly we soon realized as it evolved that we're getting artists and graphic designers and potters. And we did get makers. We did get a few makers. and a brewery. And we learned at that time that if I partnered with an anchor tenant, one of my tenants, that he would become also wealthy, building wealth here. And at the same time, what do you think he did for me? He recruited all kinds of people, younger people than me, to come and occupy this space with me. And so it made it a really interesting project. And as you can see, it's just a couple of miles from downtown Dallas. And today, we bought this for $1,810,000 square feet. And today it's worth about $11 million, okay? And we have about $2.5 million in it. And it's based on the income. See, these properties are based on their income. And we never thought it would get high enough rents to be worth that. So step number 7 is assembling your crew. Assemble the building and design crew that fit your style. If you're working on a fourplex, you don't want to hire someone who's doing hospitals all over the country, okay? You want to find someone that fits your style, that fits your local. That's where in that step number 2, you're going to find your people. And especially with engineers, with mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineers, any of you out there that are builders, you'll realize that it is really tough to get them these days, and especially do anything inexpensive. And especially, I can't even hardly get them to come out and even work with my plumbers and my air conditioning people and electricians. They won't hardly do that. So you got to find people that will do that. You got to say who's on your team: the architect, carpenters, plumbers, environmental people, electrician, maintenance people. You know, these are all the people that are going to build this and operate it once you get through. And you got to make sure that what you're putting together will operate into the future. So you got to assess yourself and ask yourself what you can do. You know, what things can you do? I was a real estate agent and a property manager, and I could do those things for my own properties and pay myself to do those things. And then I had to hire other things out. You know, what are the other things that I can learn? I learned a little bit about zoning. I learned a lot about financing. So I put together nearly all the financing of all my projects these days, even though I have no formal training whatsoever. Do you know how I learned that? By interviewing bankers and interviewing investors. Because my dad was a carpenter, my mother was a telephone operator. We didn't grow up with money. So my dad said the rich get richer, and that's not us. And I said, well, I just don't believe that. There's got to be a way we can do this. And so I had to assess, I had to learn those things and learn what I can do. And then who can I hire? Who can I hire? I had a nightmare the other week that we ran out of work, and I have a carpenter who runs work. He's like a manager because we do our own general contracting mostly. And I had a dream that we ran out of work and had nothing for him to do, and he went off somewhere else, you know. So I had to make sure we got more things to do. So I have to sell some stuff so I can find some more things to do. And so here's part of our team, just the different people. Again, me left by myself, I'm pretty much nothing really. I mean, I'm just a part of the ecosystem again. Remember, it takes a whole village to do this kind of work. It really does. And speaking of that, in city councils and city staffs, you know, if you don't have, you know, a mayor or city manager, you know, you don't have the right kind of people at City Hall, it makes it really hard to do this kind of work. Because a small-scale developer has got to be more like a Superman. I mean, you got to be a little bit of everything. A big company, you know, you can start at the top with a bunch of vice presidents and a bunch of managers and a bunch of consultants and things like that. But as a small-scale developer, you got to know a little bit about everything. So meeting on the site and talking with our people, the guy in the brown shirts, the guy I was telling you about, but the engineers, the guy in the blue to the back saying we can't do it and you need to pay me some more money, you know, to consult with you. Actually, he's a really good guy. So he's with Verdunity, and I had to teach him how to be a small-scale engineer. So, and he's doing better. Anyway, the architect is a female. The female architects will do things I ask them to do instead of what they want to do. Again, as male and female, we can learn from each other, and this is one of those lessons there. So in this case, this was a project I did in partnership with the Duncanville Economic Development Corporation. In fact, after 20 years, they're still my partner in this. And this was a project at Main and Center, in the middle of town, We did it back in 2003, and it was retail on the bottom and loft apartments on the top. Not that different than what you see down here, right? We're just trying to recreate good form. You know, the buildings up against the road, parking on the street. You know, overflow parking in the rear. At the time, we had parking requirements. And one day I was out on site, and I'm walking around, and there's a welder out there, and he doesn't know I'm the owner. They're building this site. And he said, the people that own this are a bunch of dumb, I won't say, because I don't like to cuss in front of y'all, but he said they're a bunch of dummies, you know. And I said, oh, yeah? Tell me more. So he said, yeah, see this steel up here? If they would have just done this and that and took this piece out, I'll bet they could have saved $100,000. So I just realized we had consulted with all the planners and the architects to make pretty, but we didn't consult with the welders and the plumbers and the people who actually do this. I said, hold on a minute. We got our engineers out on site, our architect on site, and sure enough, he was exactly right. And we saved a whole bunch of money. I don't know if it's $100,000, but we saved a whole bunch. But I learned a really good lesson that day. The guys that I respect the most are these guys that are out there using their tools. And today it's a very vibrant place in downtown. And it's little bitty small spaces like a 900 square foot restaurant. And for us, 400 square foot apartments, which is really small in Texas. And today it's very vibrant with several restaurants and mixed uses, 22,000 square feet, 14 apartments on the top, and 11 retail tenants on the bottom. So step number 8, design and build with the end in mind. So we always have something in our mind, you know. In the early days, it's my idealistic stage. And then as numbers come in, I begin to get realistic. And so in this case here, what you want to do is have team meetings. You want to present the big picture to all your team. You don't want to let everybody know that you're together. You want to have your design principal, your professionals lay out the constraints. You want the contractors to weigh in. You want to continue to run your numbers, to run your pro formas. What can you get in rents? What's it got to cost to operate? Who's managing the files? Who's doing the paperwork? And I'm the worst for following these rules. And I'm the worst all the time. And every time I do, I get kicked. I have to go back to this. And so then you want to try to meet on location so your people can see these things. Because after you clean it out in that other step, when you clean these buildings out, they start to talk to you. They show you things you can do cheaper than if you would have got the plans done all up front. So this was an old school. It was an alternative school, 2-story. Doesn't look very good, right? But I had this idea, and it's in an area that hadn't had any development in like 75 years. And I had this idea of taking those school classrooms, see the classroom windows, and turn them into storefronts. And then those little schoolroom spaces would become small entrepreneur, suites. And so we did that. This is what it came out to be. We did this during COVID. It filled up immediately with 32 entrepreneurs that look like this. You can see it's very simple. And we use these small spaces. You see like a hair braiding suite over here leases for $750 a month. But that's like a really high, like $30 per square foot, which is really high in this area. You couldn't really get that. But that's the same as her paying $175 a week. So what I did was I matched the dollar amount to the market, and then the size gets me the price per square foot I need as a developer. No subsidies, no tax breaks, no nothing. All in market conditions. Step number 9 is choosing your construction path. You want to know in this business here as a small developer, many times we can't hire general contractors or construction managers. We got to do it ourselves. And then sometimes we got to hire a hybrid of people. Sometimes I have my construction manager, carpenter, run the job with the architects looking over my shoulder, which is really what I like the best, because I don't look real close a lot of times like I should. In fact, one of my construction people, my partner's here today, Lena Laus, over here, and she's a female. She runs all the construction, okay, and has for many years. And the guys do respect her a lot. They say, so you got to right size your construction management team. In this case here, this is about as ugly as it gets. This is kind of stuff I do. This is a 1980s glass 4-story office building in a first-ring suburb that nobody wants to go to anymore. And nobody needs office anymore. And there's too many co-working spaces already. I have 2 of them. They both work really good, but they're because they're next to us, and we're owner-occupied with them. And so in this case here, we looked at a different way of doing the construction because it was going to be different. So the top diagram is the site. See this big site with way too much parking, right? We learned about that earlier. And this is what I wanted to do was move the building closer to the road. So how could I do that? And then I wanted to create some other things in the back to fill up the space. So the front was 2 400 square foot kiosks, okay, like this. And we're going to fix the glass on the building too. And this is under construction right now. So these are 2 400 square foot kiosks. The funny thing, it started out as an ATM for the bank that's in the building. And I couldn't just be satisfied with a little box for the ATM. I had to build these very complex 2 400 square foot food kiosks. And this is what it looks like today. You can see the building with the boxes in the front. And then later on, we'll be building live work in the back. Now, we had to get zoning on this. I mean, this is 2 years it took me to get this started because of zoning, and so I should have quit many times before this, but I didn't. And this is going to be really cool. We've already leased. We've got many people that want these 400 square foot kiosks right up on the road. That's not what most small restaurants get. So, step number 10 is activating the space. This is leasing. Now we've financed it. We've done the legal. We've got the construction done. Now we've got to lease the space. This is activating the space. You want to put the right people in the right places. And one of the things that I like to do, I like these old churches. And so I bought this church a long time ago. The pastor wanted to move out. And so we moved him out and put in a dance studio in the old sanctuary. And then we decided to divide up the spaces. You can see the old sanctuary, and you can see we cut holes in the glass and created about like 8 different small spaces. Here we are back to the small entrepreneurs. And today it's 100% occupied. But in the beginning, the mistake I made was getting rid of the church completely. And everybody I put in the sanctuary space went out of business. The dance studio at first, a lighting center secondly. And then one day, I had a church came along with a really good music program. And they said, we want this space. I said, I don't want any churches in the space here. And then I got to thinking about it. The best thing to go back in this building was a church. And to mix the church with all these mixed uses, it gave us a perfect place. It also gave us perfect balance on our parking. And it used the space 7 days a week. And it's active all the time. And it's amazing now. And it's doing really well. And so here's just what it looks like as we changed it. You can see these were all brick walls. See, we'll take a big, ugly building and cut holes all in it, and paint on it. And all of a sudden, it looks completely different. Step number 11, succeeding through good management. This is really important, and it's step 11. It's the last step, and it's the hardest one. And who wants to clean toilets out and unstop sewers and fix people's air conditioning when they break and, take care of damage and collect rent and go to court, when people don't pay you and all these things. So this is a new project I'm experimenting with. And to manage it, I had to move into it. And this is a suburban house on an acre of land. And I didn't want to live in a suburban house, okay? I lived above a cheap Chinese restaurant for the last 7 years before this, which I really liked a lot, so in an urban setting. And so in this case, the New York Times picked this up recently, and the New York Times said that they opened a broom closet in my kitchen and pointed to a door handle near a mop and a trash can, and somewhere on the other side lay one small solution to America's affordable housing crisis. And you can read this article, you can pull it up. And so here's what it is. This is the way it looked. Abandoned, 1970s, baby boomer occupied. Mom and dad owned it. Kids went away to school and went away. Dad died. Mom's in this by herself. They can't keep the house up. Had to sell it. So what we did was we divided into 4 spaces It's in a single-family zone neighborhood. But what I found out is I could have up to 4 people live with me that are roommates. But the thing is, I don't want any roommates, and I don't share good together, and neither do most people. And I sure don't want anybody in my family living with me in my kitchen. And so see these units. This is the old master. Here's the kids' rooms with the Jack and Jill bathroom. There's the kitchen and the living room and the dining room. And there's the game room over there. Now see the circles over there? See the circles? Those are locking doors. Those are the secret doors he was talking about. And behind this right here is this. And each of those. And by doing that and not putting full kitchens in each of those units, I hacked the code. And so that's my keeper of the time. And so anyway, today it looks really good. And it's been very successful so far. And I actually like living there. The only reason I can live there is because there's other people living around me that don't live in the house with me. And so sometimes in step 12 is giving back to your communities. Okay, and sometimes you have to do things like serve on your zoning boards and work on the garden club or clean up the creeks, or work on your Main Street Association or get involved in your chambers of commerce. And I've done all those things. But this one here was an interesting. This is the infamous Texas Theater. This is where Lee Harvey Oswald was captured after he allegedly shot President John F. Kennedy. I am a conspiracy theorist. Oswald did not kill Kennedy. I can tell you that. I've lived with this my whole life. I'm the same age as this, just about, as Kennedy's. That's a little bit older than Kennedy's. But anyway, when we got to working on this back in 1999, I was chairing the Oak Cliff Foundation, which we purchased this with CBDG funds, with federal grant funds. It's a nonprofit. And we restored it, and it became one of the only single-screen movie theaters in the country that was profitable. Now today it's 2 theaters, and how did we get it profitable? We fixed it up as a nonprofit, and we got it with no debt, and then we sold it to a for-profit film company who now owns it and operates it. But we did get it landmarked. It can never be torn down. Okay, and today it's back on the tax rolls, showing movies, and it's for profit. So that's our ending, Neighborhood Evolution. If you're interested in our workbook, you can get this. And the only thing I would leave you with this today. Remember this. The only thing you take with you from this earth is what you give away or leave behind. Thank you.
Do we have any questions? Hi, I was wondering if you ever think about having a loss leader in your commercial development that maybe isn't profitable on its own but drives traffic for others?
Everything. No, we do, but eventually they're never loss leaders, because when you farm and you're working in your community, you may do a project that doesn't make as much money right off the bat. But you may build it or something, you can't sell it right now, and you lease it for a while until you build other things around it. And then as you build other things and improve the neighborhood, and other people start to improve the neighborhood, it'll get more profitable, and then you can make profit off of it. But since when did real estate become a short-term game? I mean, real estate is supposed to be a long-term game, but it's treated today, unfortunately, through Wall Street, is how do we make profit immediately? So we build it as cheap as we can. We build a bunch of apartments, we lease them up, and we sell them to the Ohio State Teacher Pension Fund. Okay, so the 2 brokers make money, and everybody else gets the you-know-what. And so sometimes you have to do things, and it makes other things work. And so we do that all the time. We don't really like to, because it's hard on our cash flow to do that. All right? Thank you very much.